Let's talk about a country where the president renames the months after himself and his family. A country where a book written by the leader is not only mandatory reading for students, but also required knowledge to obtain a driver's license. A place where golden statues of rulers rotate to face the sun, and the capital city boasts the highest density of white marble buildings in the world. An empty, gleaming city that feels more like a movie set than a living, breathing metropolis. Breadlines stretch through rural towns, yet billions are spent on Olympic stadiums shaped like animals. Internet access? Nearly non-existent. Criticizing the government? A one-way ticket to disappear into the void of political prisons. This is not a dystopian novel or an episode of Black Mirror. This is reality. This is the most insane dictatorship on Earth. And this country is none other than Turkmenistan. Turkmenistan is a nation that defies logic. Situated in Central Asia, it remains one of the most isolated and repressive countries on the planet. Its leaders, from Saparmurat Niazov, known as Turkmenbashi, to the current president, Serdar Berdimuhamedov, have ruled with an absurd mix of authoritarianism, cult-like propaganda, and bizarre extravagance. But what makes Turkmenistan's dictatorship so uniquely strange? How does it maintain such tight control over its people while projecting an illusion of grandeur to the world? And most importantly, how long can this surreal regime last? To understand the insanity of Turkmenistan's dictatorship, we must begin with its origins. After gaining independence from the Soviet Union in 1991, Turkmenistan fell under the rule of Saparmurat Niazov. Known as Turkmenbashi, or leader of the Turkmen, he wasted no time transforming the country into his personal fiefdom. Niazov's rule was defined by his obsession with self-glorification. He erected golden statues of himself, including the infamous rotating statue in Ashgabat that always faced the sun. He renamed the months of the year after himself and his family members. April, for example, became Gurban Sultan, in honor of his mother. His magnum opus, the Runama, was declared the spiritual guide for the nation, taught in schools, and required for obtaining everything from jobs to driver's licenses. But why would a leader go to such absurd lengths to create a personality cult? The answer lies in control. Niazov's dictatorship wasn't just about governing, it was about domination. By weaving himself into every aspect of Turkmen life, from education to religion, he ensured there was no space for dissent or independent thought. The Runama wasn't just a book. It was a symbol of his absolute authority. Citizens who failed to praise or memorize it risked losing their futures, or worse. The sheer absurdity of his rule was not a weakness. It was a tool to keep the population in a state of confusion and submission. But as bizarre as Niazov's reign was, it was only the beginning. After Niazov's death in 2006, Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov, a former dentist and health minister, stepped into power. Many hoped for reform, but Gurbanguly quickly proved that he could outdo his predecessor in both authoritarianism and absurdity. He dismantled some of Niazov's legacy, such as renaming the months, but replaced it with his own brand of eccentricity. Berdimuhamedov styled himself as a Renaissance man, performing songs on national television, writing books on topics as diverse as horses and herbal tea, and even starring in propaganda videos where he performed feats of strength and skill. But behind the spectacle lay a regime as oppressive as ever. Under Berdimuhamedov, Turkmenistan's capital, Ashgabat, became a surreal monument to vanity. The city boasts over 500 white marble buildings, earning it a Guinness World Record. It is home to the Neutrality Arch, once topped by a rotating golden statue of Niazov, now replaced by Berdimuhamedov's own golden image on horseback. The city's grandeur is matched only by its emptiness. Streets are eerily quiet, and many of the lavish buildings are barely used. Outside the capital, life tells a different story. Most Turkmens struggle to afford basic necessities like food and medicine, standing in breadlines while the regime spends billions. How does a government justify such a stark disparity? The answer, again, is control. By projecting an image of wealth and power, the regime distracts from the reality of widespread poverty and repression. It's a smokescreen, designed to maintain the illusion of a prosperous nation under a benevolent leader. But the facade is cracking. Turkmenistan's economy, heavily reliant on natural gas exports, has been plagued by mismanagement and corruption. Despite sitting on the world's fourth largest gas reserves, the wealth rarely trickles down to ordinary citizens. Instead, it funds the regime's extravagant projects and enriches a small elite. And then there's the internet, or lack thereof. Turkmenistan has one of the lowest rates of internet access in the world. Social media platforms are banned, foreign websites are blocked, and surveillance is omnipresent. For most citizens, the internet is a distant concept, replaced by state-run media that broadcasts a steady stream of propaganda. This information vacuum ensures that Turkmen citizens remain isolated from the outside world, unable to question the regime or organize dissent. But the most sinister aspect of Turkmenistan's dictatorship is its approach to dissent. The country's security apparatus operates with ruthless efficiency. Political prisoners are held in secretive prisons like Ovadıntepe, notorious for their inhumane conditions. Families of the disappeared are often left with no information, creating an atmosphere of fear and paranoia. Even a hint of criticism can lead to imprisonment, or worse. How does a population endure such repression without revolt? The answer lies in a combination of fear, propaganda, and isolation. Turkmenistan's citizens are bombarded with messages of loyalty and obedience from birth. The cult of personality surrounding the president leaves no room for alternative narratives. Meanwhile, the lack of internet access and foreign media ensures that most Turkmen have no frame of reference for life outside their country. But history shows that even the most repressive regimes are not immune to change. In 2022, Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov handed power to his son, Serdar Berdimuhamedov, in a carefully orchestrated transition. Serdar now rules Turkmenistan, but little has changed. The cult of personality persists, and the country remains one of the most closed-off and bizarre places on Earth. Is Serdar merely a continuation of his father's rule, or could he eventually chart a different course? And more importantly, how long can Turkmenistan's dictatorship survive in a world that is increasingly interconnected? As we look at Turkmenistan, another question arises. Why does the world tolerate such a regime? The answer lies in geopolitics. Turkmenistan's vast gas reserves make it a valuable partner for countries like China, which imports most of its gas. Meanwhile, its isolation and neutrality make it a low-priority issue for the West. But as global energy markets shift and authoritarian regimes face growing scrutiny, could Turkmenistan's time in the shadows come to an end? The story of Turkmenistan is one of contrasts, a nation of vast resources and abject poverty, of gleaming marble cities and desolate rural landscapes, of extravagant rulers and repressed citizens. It is a reminder that even in the 21st century, dictatorships can thrive under the right conditions. But no regime lasts forever. The question is not if Turkmenistan will change, but when, and at what cost. Turkmenistan stands as a surreal case study of how far a dictatorship can go in isolating its people while projecting an illusion of grandeur. Its leaders, from Niazov to Berdimuhamedov, have created a system so bizarre it feels like fiction. Yet for the millions who live there, it is a harsh reality. The world may not pay much attention to Turkmenistan today, but history has a way of catching up. Will this regime collapse under its contradictions? Or will it evolve into something even stranger? Only time will tell.